Welcome to my Embroider Along project. This is going to be Shelly Smola Designs Easter Quiet Book. We are going to have 7 sessions. This is session 1. So with this, let's see what I have. Let's remember what the PowerPoint says. So just in case you didn't see my preview live stream, this is a wonderful quiet book full of kids' activities. There's a puzzle, there's a concentration game where there's 10 pairs. There's an Easter egg hunt, so you hide Easter eggs throughout the book. There's a fuzzy lamb that needs a bow. Chicks that hide in an egg, and each page has a special pocket basket or eggs to hold accessories. And the cover page features an egg that is pieced in the hoop, so it's basically paper piecing in the hoop, and that allows a lot of design options, but we will get to it whenever we actually get to the cover. It can be a book, but it can also be a quilt, so if you want it to be a quiet quilt where they can play with it on the floor, you can definitely do that. One of the things that she does differently with the book is she uses Minky as a sashing to make it really soft, and then she uses a really fun pom-pom trim around the outside. So this is our scheduled meetings. There are 7 sessions, like I said, and which equates to 7 Fridays, January through March, and we should hopefully be done by April 4th, which is Easter. So these are the dates. The more important thing is January 22nd, and this is 2021, will be the next date. And it's about every 2 weeks, except at the end when we're going to do a This is How We Put It Together session on the 26th, so that you have a little bit of time to get it done before Easter. So some of the stuff you're going to need, and we'll talk about it a little bit more in detail in a little bit. Tearaway or cutaway mesh stabilizer. So tearaway stabilizer or cutaway mesh. You will need aqua mesh stabilizer, which is a water-soluble stabilizer. Half yard of several colors of quote-unquote felt. In this case, felt refers to fabric that does not fray. So most of my stuff is fleece with a little bit of felt or real felt or acrylic felt thrown in. You want some felt scraps for appliques. You need 18 1.5 by 1.5 inch fabric squares that won't show. I am also, in this case, using scraps of felt, like real felt, or not real. In my head, real felt is wool felt. This is acrylic felt. I wouldn't spend the money on a kid's toy to put wool felt in it, especially where it doesn't show. You want some embroidery needles, a universal. If you're using fleece and felt, would probably be the best. Embroidery thread, bobbin thread, embroidery nips, fray check, an X-Acto knife for cutting holes, buttonhole cutter, which is optional, but I do in fact love my buttonhole cutter and feel it makes it easier than using an X-Acto knife in certain circumstances. Plus I already had it. A tapestry needle and hot glue, which I just had to buy a hot glue gun because I couldn't find mine. Not that we're going to need it this month, or actually, we won't need it this month at all, but this session, what we're going to do. So one of the handouts I have made is this one on the left. It has thread colors. So in the PDF that comes with the embroidery collection, which you do have to buy in order to make it, how she refers to what color to use, which is always up to interpretation, is just by name. So like a light yellow, a bright yellow, a dark yellow. So what this does is if you print this out, you can then choose what color you're using and write the thread number next to it, or what thread color you're using. How I went about this is I think all these colors I have as my fleece, which is I'm using from my background. And so I matched a color to my fleece, and then decided, based on it, is it going to be my light yellow? Is it going to be my yellow? Is it going to be bright? And then I used a Isacord thread chart or shade chart to find ones that would coordinate. The only color I don't think she has is gray, that I've added, and I really just added that because I chose a gray color. At least one of my bunnies is gray, so that's what I chose to do. Oh, and I missed some messages. Good morning, Nancy, and good morning, Rowena. On the other side, the other part of the page, I have pictures of all the designs, and they are in a weird order if you're looking at the PDF that comes with the collection. These are actually the order that I'm planning on presenting them. So my thought process with this is we're going to do 5 quote-unquote hoopings a month. Some of them will actually be 5 hoopings. Some will be more like just 5 designs. And sometimes it's just, let's do 1 hooping but get as many things in it as possible. So for example, the first session in February, we're doing a lot of our freestanding stuff. So if I get my little mouse cursor, so we're doing like this basket here and this basket and then all the eggs we need. And that can fit in 1 hooping. I did it in a midi hoop, which is slightly larger than a large oval, but it could fit in a large oval, or you could do 2 smaller hoopings. This month, we will be doing 5 individual hoopings. But what I like, or what I've tried to do is like, this one has more colors. This one is super simple. This one has more colors. This one's super simple. This one is the most complex, but you have to have 1 complex one every month. So for our session 1 embroidery designs, we are going to do the bunny puzzle pages 1 and 2. We're not actually doing the puzzle. We're just doing the page that it will go on. We're going to do the chicks and the egg page 1 and 2. And then we're actually going to do the chicks and the egg, which is a freestanding object because it gets put on later. We're not putting it on right now. We're just making the pieces. So some of the things you're going to need for these specific pages, you'll need our quote-unquote felt for the background of each page. I used fleece. And of course, you're going to need thread. For the bunny puzzle pages, that's all you need because they both have 3D elements, but we're not doing the basket this month. Or actually, no, we're not doing it this month because we're doing it next month. And we're not doing the bunny puzzle till later on as well. And then for chicks and the eggs, we are actually doing all the elements for this. We're just not putting it together. So you'll need the felt for the background of each page. You'll need 5 of those 1.5-inch squares. So they are actually put behind where you see these little eggs sticking out. These are called egg pockets, which is why this one's called the egg. So these are egg pockets. They're stuck behind it to make the pocket to hold Easter eggs for the Easter egg hunt. You want an X-Acto knife or buttonhole cutter. Because we are not attaching the egg to the background, I am not using an X-Acto knife this time. I just used my buttonhole cutters to cut open the buttonholes. Nice to have on hand, but again, we're not dealing with it right now, and I forgot to take it out of the PowerPoint, is the ribbon. So I need a 1.25 yards of 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch ribbon. I found that most of the ribbon I could find easily was like 1/8 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch, 5/8 of an inch. No idea why I couldn't find 1/4 inch. But you will need some ribbon. We will need a polyester zipper or nylon. No metal zippers. You will break needles. We don't want to break needles. And then felt or fleece for the egg pocket or the egg. Technically that's supposed to be the egg. So we're going to start with embroidering the bunny puzzle page. So I have cut my fleece 2 different ways. Most of it, when I wasn't messing up, is a 10-inch strip. And then I have one that is a either 14 or 15-inch strip. And I have it that size because most of the time I'm going to be using a large oval hoop. And a large oval hooping is about 10 by 14. Because I'm going to hoop everything. So in this case, this is a 10-inch strip of fleece. And I am hooping at the bottom. If you notice, my bracket's right here. So this is going to be at the top of my hoop. And I prefer to have my extra fabric at the top because then it's not hanging down. It's just sitting on my desk that the machine's on. Of course, this depends how you have your machine set up. If you don't have a very good clear area behind your machine for it to be, you might need it at the front hanging down. But I like to do this because it ends up saving me on fabric. Hooping wise, I am hooping, this is the second quiet book I've started, and this time I am using polymesh stabilizer. My original thought was that it wouldn't hold the stitches well, but it's holding them beautifully. So I don't know where my mind was earlier, and by earlier I mean in December. Feeling both of them. So I used polymesh on this one. In the previous ones, I used heavyweight tearaway, and I think personally the polymesh just feels a lot better because I'm not tearing the tearaway away. I'm actually just leaving it in, and polymesh is so much lighter, it gives it a better hand. Conversely, I could see where sometimes the heavyweight tearaway might be a better platform for like the bunny puzzle being behind it, or the bunny puzzle page where the puzzle goes on, because it might give it more stability whenever you're trying to put the puzzle pieces on. I haven't gotten that far, so I'm not sure which one's best, but I will say I do like the hand of the polymesh better, and I am just using one layer of it. Okay, so you embroider the bunny puzzle page 1 just like you would embroider anything else. So I think I followed fairly closely the colors she recommended. Do I remember if I did that exactly? No, because a lot of times... Oh, I think the bow was supposed to be yellow, and I looked at it and was like, no, we'll make the bow purple. I do like to make things purple. But when I'm picking out colors, for example, I'm putting this on yellow, so I chose to, for the most part, not use yellow. So if the bow was yellow, I'm like, okay, I'll just substitute a different color. Now, on the other hand, we have these eyelets, and that is what the basket holds on to, or what we will basically sew the basket on with ribbon. And I don't really want those to show, so I chose a color that matched. Then we are going to hoop it again and do our bunny puzzle page 2. This one's just 2 thread colors. I was super lazy and did them both pink. It's really just this is where the puzzle goes, and the bunny is actually optional, whether you want to have a little bit of help of what the puzzle kind of looks like. As I will probably be giving this to my daughter when she's about 3 or 4, when she stops eating things or putting things in her mouth that she's not supposed to. I think it would be helpful for her to have the bunny. So I went ahead and put the bunny on. So then we have our chicks in the egg page. So this is the tiny bit more complicated, but not very much. So you hoop your felt, fleece, whatever, and stabilizer together like we did before, and you embroider most of the chicks in page 1, except after color 11, which is the egg pocket cutting line, you stop. You're going to take your hoop off the machine, but do not unhoop. And you're going to cut your buttonholes open. So this is where I really like a buttonhole cutter, because it is nice and sharp. I'm sure X-Acto knives are sharper, but this one's sharp, and I can just kind of stab downward. I can very quickly cut buttonholes, and they're straight. When I use an X-Acto knife, I am usually not very straight. The buttonhole cutter does come with a block of wood, which is not shown because it is underneath the hooping. So you put the block of wood under where you're going to cut and use the buttonhole cutter to cut it open. Block of wood really does help with the X-Acto knife as well, because then you can just stick it under where you're cutting and you don't have to worry about scarring anything. After you get your buttonholes cut open, that is when you're going to put on the back your 1.5 inch square. I don't always put them straight. It depends on what else is going on. The back, like if there's 2 pockets close to each other, I'm going to try and make it where the squares don't overlap much. Once you have it on the back, and I use 505 to hold it in place, you're going to place it, put the hoop back on the machine and stitch color number 12, the egg pocket finish. And so that, and I don't think I got a picture of it, but what it does is it just does a whole line all the way around the egg pocket so that it is then a pocket. So this is, you do the chicks and the egg page 2, same as you do 1, except instead of having 3 egg pockets, you have 2. It's a lot of just doing the same thing over and over again, which I like, because then you get good at it and you maybe only have one page where you use a seam ripper to open up your buttonholes because you've already put the back on and made it into a pocket. So there is always ways to recover. Seam rippers are very good at opening buttonholes when you have not done it like you're supposed to. And that's why I already did one, so that hopefully you don't necessarily make the same mistakes I do. Okay, so now we have the egg. So this is going to hold all of our chicks, which we will make later. So you're going to hoop, wash away stabilizer. I really prefer aqua mesh. It holds more stitches and won't tear on me. Plus, with how we take the stabilizer away, we don't actually wash this. We just use a Q-tip to get the stabilizer off the edges. I think it just works better. So this is done as an applique. So you stitch color 1, which is your placement line. You put your applique fabric over the placement line. In this case, I am using fleece. You stitch color number 2, which is your cutting line, and then you trim your fabric around that cutting line. And I try to get as close as possible without cutting it, but I also know if there's a little bit of fuzzy on the edge of my egg, no one's going to notice, most likely. And then you continue embroidering, stopping after color 8. One of my big things I think about when I'm making something like this is who it's going to. And if it's going to a small child, they will not care about the tiny details, which I appreciate. So then we're at our egg. We have stitched through color 8. So we have all the details on our egg and we're ready to do our zipper. So she has our zipper put in an ingenious way. So we stitch color number 9, which is our cutting line for our zipper. And this is green, but you can't see it because it's a single stitch, but it's this line going around here. I mean, you can kind of tell what's going on. You go ahead, remove your hoop from the machine, but do not unhoop. We're going to take it on and off a lot of times right now for these steps. And we're going to trim our fabric inside the cutting line. So it's basically doing, didn't mean to click. We're taking out all that fabric inside because that's where our zipper's going to go. But we're not cutting the stabilizer because we still need its stabilization for right now. So after we get it all trimmed out, we are going to stitch color 10, finish for the zipper section. And what that does is it adds the satin stitch all the way around the opening of the egg. So that's what's actually going to give it a finished look. And that's something I had never thought about when inserting a zipper. So at this point, we're going to remove the hoop from the machine again, but again, do not unhoop. Don't unhoop until the zipper is completely in. We're going to trim a small section of the stabilizer away at the bottom of the egg. And it needs to be big enough for our zipper head to fit in. I did really well. You want it a little bit bigger than I have. Like my zipper head fits perfectly, but in a step or two, we're going to trim the rest of the stabilizer away. And it would be a lot easier if I had a little bit more room in there. So we're going to place our closed zipper head through the hole, place the closed zipper on the back of the hooping, and we're going to center our zipper teeth in the zipper gap. I had to hold mine up to the light to make sure it was doing what I wanted. And zipper stops need to be outside the egg. What I forgot to say we needed for this is tape. So I am using OESD's tearaway tape. And although at this point where I have it, there is no chance of stitching through it, the instructions, and everyone knows I'm bad at following instructions, the instructions say to use Scotch tape, which will hold just as well. But if you embroider through Scotch tape, it is not fun getting it off because it comes off in teeny pieces, whereas the tearaway tape tears away nicely. But anyways, this is what the back of your hoop should look like, and we're going to stick it back on our machine. And we are going to stitch color number 11, tack down for the top half of the zipper. So that is this line of stitching right here that goes all around the top, really like 2/3 of the zipper. And I love that she started at a line. Are these two supposed to be the same color? Not necessarily, but because she started at a satin stitch, it doesn't show as much the start-stop part. So after we do that, we are going to take our hoop off the machine, but we're not going to unhoop. We are going to trim away the rest of the stabilizer from the zipper opening, and we're going to open our zipper so the pull's at the top, and then we'll put it back on the machine and stitch the tack down for the bottom half of the zipper. Yes, I could have moved my zipper tapes in further so there's not a gap there, but it really doesn't matter because it closes perfectly after it's done anyways. So then, once you have the bottom half done, you're going to remove the egg from your hoop. You're going to remove the hoop from the machine, and you can remove the hooping from your egg. Remove your hooping from your egg. Remove your egg from the hoop. And you're going to trim the stabilizer away from around the edge of the egg, and you want to try and get as close as possible without cutting stitches. And we do that so it will be easier to just take the stabilizer away from just the outside edge, or just the outside edge and around the zipper finish. We are going to leave our zipper long. There are 2 or 3 different zipper pockets. I'm not even sure now. There's at least 2. And we're going to finish all the zipper pockets at the same time. I don't want to get out my hot glue gun more than once if I don't have to. So we are going to wait and finish our zipper pockets at a later time. So now we have 5 completed designs. And another reason you are probably watching this is so that you can see what I have done wrong. And one thing, don't trim to size at this time. You can trim them a little bit bigger. We are doing the 5x7 design, or I'm doing the 5x7 designs. There are 4x4 designs. And they should be trimmed at some point to 7x9. My usual reason for not trimming is because fabric stretches and does weird things and frays, because I work with a lot of cottons. This isn't going to fray. It shouldn't be handled at so much that it stretches out of size. The part I'm saying don't trim is because I read the instructions again, because my first quiet book hasn't actually gotten to the point where I can sew it together yet, because life. But when you trim them to size, she recommends using a pinking rotary cutter blade, or basically a decorative rotary cutter blade, and I think that looks really nice. And all my pages are trimmed to size, so my quiet books are going to end up slightly smaller. Not much, because I don't have to trim off much to get a decorative stitch, but if you really want to trim them to size, because you could just trim them slightly bigger. So if they're supposed to be 7x9, make them 7.5 by 9.5 or something like that. Get a pinking rotary cutter blade or a decorative rotary cutter blade. Because theoretically that would look better. But I'm having thoughts on how to do that, so I would wait. So, I'm going to take questions and comments and see if there are any. I'm not seeing any. Of course, it takes time because it's a live stream. Well, YouTube, I'm going to cut you off here. I'm going to see if there's any questions on Facebook. If there are any, really, I will put it in the comments. So, YouTube, thanks for watching the video. Join us next time for session.